Other questions from the audience? I'm going to this is a pretty theoretical question, but we're exporting 16% of our product these days. We're not shipping water overseas, we're shipping protein and fat overseas. Feed efficiency, green cows, carbon footprint, they're among the buzzwords in the dairy processor and dairy marketers. I'm talking on the product side here, not the cow side. With all your knowledge of breeding good cows and good bulls, how do we go about breeding Holsteins that meet these two growing market demands in our export market for dairy products?
Well, I think it just gets back to cows that produce a lot of milk are going to be, the most profitable cows, and sure they're going to, there's going to be other problems, but they are going to be the most efficient cows that we breed today.
I really don't have much to add to that, but I think our genomic program that we have today is probably the greatest thing that's hit our breed in a long time. We're misusing it, I'm afraid, but there's nothing wrong with genomics. There's a little something wrong with how we're using it. We're jumping on it way too quick. We spent 150 years learning how to breed cows from good pedigrees, and like begets like, and that still works, just because we got a genomic number on them, don't make them a wonderful bull right away. And I think, using genomic bulls with a little common sense and getting the right pedigrees will help us get better and better cows. And I will predict that in the next 15 or 20 years, we're going to breed some amazing cows in this country due to our ability to use genomics. And I think genomics is an ongoing process, and we're going to learn more and more as we go along. As we get more cows genomically tested, we'll be able to uncover many things. One of the things that I'm really pleased about with genomics is that it has been able to uncover several traits that are not good for reproduction, and that lets us keep those traits out of our herds. And I'm quite a fan of not using bulls that have any recessives. I said, why? There's plenty of bulls out there. We do not need to use bulls with recessives. Just eliminate them out of the breed. And I'm a big fan of that. I don't use many bulls that have got recessives.
For those that were here early, at 1 o'clock, I know we had a lot of travel issues, but at the genetics conference, one of the statistics that we talked about, and Bob was alluding to how far we've come and how far we can go yet on breeding cows. So Paul Van Roden, who heads up AIPL, that still is involved in calculating U.S. evaluations. In December, the highest saleable genomic Holstein bull, non-proven genomic, was 960 net merit. This was on the net merit scale. We could do the same for TPI, 960. So if you took all the best genes of the Holstein population worldwide and plucked out the best of each cow, what's the top, and you made a super cow, what's the top side? 960 is the bull. The cow would come in at 7,535 net merit. So using that 960 versus 7,535, we're only 13% of the way. And obviously, as we breed better cows, we're going to keep moving that top end bar. So literally, the sky is the limit on what we can do yet. We're getting close to wrapping up, so if someone has a question, I would urge you to do that. Todd Borgert.
I think in this room, we have a lot to learn on genomics, and I think people are excited about that, but there's also a lot of skepticism based on it. And I'm just wondering how you feel that the Dahlias and the Roxys would, if under our system currently, of the way it's proven both, would those two families become what they were when they were, if we were proving bulls like we are now?
Would they have a shot in genomic era?
I don't know. My guess is probably not. It's like at the time you had Dow, there was Mark and Dow in the pedigree with a low elevation, so they were good bulls. But I don't know if they would be high enough today to do much work.
Roxy never has been in the limelight for genomics. Her pedigree's old, she's a citation R, he's damn near the same vintage as I am. Not quite, but, so I don't think, you know, opportunity is necessary for an animal, a bull or a cow, to get somewhere. And the U.S. bull studs were never very willing to try any Roxy sons or Roxy grandsons, but the Europeans were, and they had some good successes with them. So I don't think those cows would have really went a long ways today, because genomics is everything today, just about everything. You can't sell a bull that doesn't have pretty good genome.
I will add in though, from a pure scientific standpoint, if you go back and look at where Roxy and Della were at their time, at their moment of time with the general population, they were still they were still very high on CTPI. They obviously didn't have net merit at that time, but compared to their peers, they were stellar. I think it's very fitting. We're going to be wrapping up here, but our final question is going to come from Dave Rose.
Bob and Frank, on the top of pedigrees, when you're at a sale, there's net merit, there's deviation on fat, protein, somatic cell, productive life, and all this information on there. What might be the first couple of things that you would first try to figure out in trying to evaluate that animal?
Well, I guess today, if we're gonna buy a heifer, we'd be looking for something kind of outcross and probably with protein. I mean, that seems to be two pretty important things in the breed.
How do you rate net merit?
Oh, no. I don't understand it myself.
Question is, how do you rate net merit into your factor of purchasing?
Well, I like, you know, gotta have enough production there, and that to get to where you have a high enough net merit to work with. But I still think today a big thing is to get something good that's different. And
How do you rate somatic cell? For some people, that seems to what somatic cell is being significant.
well, I think it's an accurate, you know, genomic tool that if they're higher in somatic cell, they're going to probably be higher, you know, cattle with somatic cell problems. So I think it's important to look at that part of the system.
Bob?
I don't use net merit very much. Look at it, but I look at percentage of components when I look at the pedigree. I like to stick with those cows that are on the high end for components. I don't think there's a lot of use of making a 40,000 pound record of 3% milk. You just as well make a 30,000 pound record of 4% of the same fat. And you're all done, and that's what we sell today is fat and protein. So that's the number one thing I will look at is component. The second thing, I'm going to look down the list of records for the dam and the grand dam and the great grand dam and make sure they've calved regularly and quite a few times. I think that tells us a lot about the health of that family. They were long-lived cows and they calved quite regularly. They've done a lot of things right. And certainly we got to have enough production. We don't ever forget that. If we just get too crazy about type and don't bring production along with it, we're just not playing the game right. But as far as looking at the net merit or the pounds of fat or protein, I do like the pounds of fat and protein, but I look more at the percentage of fat and protein with adequate milk on the cow train.
We're going to wrap up here. One quick story on somatic cell. My dad and my mom and our herd at home maintained a cell count under 100,000 for 18 straight years. There was one bull that we had about 7 or 8 2-year-olds at one time, and every one of them had mastitis in the first lactation with that cell count level. And about a year later, somatic cell counts came out genetically, and he turned out to be one of the worst 3 bulls in the breed. And we sold every one of those 2-year-olds and we just got them out of the herd because we didn't want those genetics that the bull's name begins with a M and ends with a T, 6 letters. But so some of this stuff is very, very true. I we need to start our annual meeting at 9 o'clock, and it is 9 o'clock. Let's give Bob and Frank a wonderful round of applause for sharing their story with us.